you store rabbit manure? If, you know, all winter, what do you do with it? I put it in buckets. I put it in buckets, and that's it. How we get our bunnies ready for the winter and how we take care of them in the winter. Well, yeah, he does. He's got a mountain there. See all that manure in there? That's gonna really help out my potato beds this year. So all of our animals have a purpose. We use their manure for fertilizer. I'm going to be emptying out both of their trays into the potato and garlic bed to add some more nutrients to it. And this is basically what it looks like. I mean, there is a little urine in there, but that's not going to hurt anything. You could get a little more thorough with this and get like a little rake or whatever and distribute it nice and evenly. But I have garlic in this bed already, so I did not want to use any type of rake on this area here. One of the reasons why I use my rabbit's manure in the garden is because it is rich in nitrogen and potassium, and potassium helps plants to digest other nutrients and produce their own food. Rabbit manure contains 2% nitrogen and 1% of each potassium and phosphorus. This makes it very, very nutritious for your plants. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So some of the winter care that we do for our rabbits is quite different than what we do for our chickens. For instance, we use heating pads, a heated water. I mean, we do have heated waters for the chickens too, but we also have heating pads for them because it's probably just for my peace of mind because I don't want them to get cold, and it is pretty cold. Plus, I'm also going to use some of these old linen blankets to put on the top of their cages, so they just get a little bit of extra layer of warmth. Say it's cold outside. Put yours on first. I'm using these linen blankets here, so if they do chew on them, I don't really think that it's gonna, harm them that much. I mean, I had a regular flannel blanket on them last year, and they chewed that a lot, and they lived through it, so I think that they'll be okay. Rabbits have warm coats and thick fur pads on the bottoms of their feet, so generally they're quite well equipped for the colder weather. Like I said, they probably don't need it like I think that they do because they're built for the winter. I know this, but I want these guys to be as comfortable as possible. So another way that we keep these guys warm is that we use heated pads. So Matthew just gets these on Amazon, and I think that they're just meant for small pets. And we used these last year too, and the tops of these get nice and warm for them so they don't get cold in the wintertime. They do chew on these, which they did ruin their last two because I didn't take them out in the spring, so they had a field day with it. So in the springtime, if you do use these, take them out. Take them out after winter because they will chew on them and then they won't be any good anymore. But they're not really expensive. These things right here were only like, I think Matthew told me they were like $20 or something like that. They have a whole bunch of different settings, just like any type of like heating pad that you would get on. And then I turn it up to all the way to on constantly. See, it has like a time thing here and a temperature. So the temperature I put all the way up for, and then I put it just on so it never turns off. And I don't have to worry about them getting cold. I just come in and I check them every day to make sure that they're working. That way I know they're warm. Another thing that we have for them is we have some heated waterers. So these are the heated waterers that we purchased from, I think it was Family Farm and Home, if I'm not mistaken, or it was Tractor Supply. We just plug these in and it keeps their water from freezing. So keeping these bunnies are pretty cheap for us. They're a lot cheaper than the chickens, for sure. They don't eat as much. Their feed don't cost as much. We don't have to buy feed as often. We do try to buy like 50-pound bags of food for them. For 2 rabbits, it lasts for probably, it lasts for about 3 months or more, depending on how much they eat. And we also buy them treats, but we predominantly use Timothy hay. And Timothy hay is just basically grass hay. It's not a legume like alfalfa hay. Alfalfa hay is used for more treats for adult rabbits. So you need to be careful how much you give them because it can cause them to blow. It can just cause a lot of stomach issues with rabbits. Timothy hay you can feed every day and it's not going to hurt them, and that's probably 80% of their diet is Timothy hay. So another thing that I learned is that female mini loves, and in rabbits in general, are not as friendly as the males, especially mine. She makes me work for her affection, for sure. So the type of feed that we use, we try to use an organic, non-GMO type food for them because we use their pellets on our garden, and we don't want to introduce any bacteria or pesticides or anything like that to our soil. So what type of hay we give them and what type of food we give them, we're very selective with that. And sometimes it's hard to find hay that don't have any pesticides sprayed on them. Make sure that it hasn't been sprayed with any type of chemical first. Also in the wintertime, you want to keep your rabbits comfortable and happy so that they don't get bored. And one way that I do that is I go outside and I gather up a whole bunch of these pine cones, and then I dry them in the oven at about 200 degrees. And pine cones will not hurt rabbits. And then I use these little empty toilet rolls and paper towel rolls, and I will stuff their hay inside. And I'll show you how it looks. And like I said, we only give these to them as treats. And when I say treats, it's like this. And we don't give it to them every day, because it's not healthy for them. Alfalfa hay is primarily used for younger rabbits, plus malnourished rabbits, things like that, and only as treats for adult rabbits. So be careful how much you use. They love to pick things up and throw it around. So that's the perfect toy for them. See, that's been in there since yesterday, and they don't chew them up or anything. They just play with them. They chew on them, but they don't chew them up. It's always to just keep a couple in there. So see, he'll just move it around and play with it, nibble on it a little bit. And see, I love my treats. And you want to be careful how many, about giving your bunnies treats. We give them carrots, and I give them apples. You can give them stuff like that, but they say not to give it to them all the time because it can affect their bowels. And they really enjoy this one here. Yeah. Hit it. So another thing, if you don't give them things to play with or, to toss around in there, because they do get bored, they will chew on things. He has really started to nibble on his pad already, and this is a brand new pad. So that's why I say that it's important to put extra toys and stuff in there for your rabbits, because they get bored. See, I like that. See, I like that. So I would really like to bring them in the house for the winter, but Ethan, he sprays. Male rabbits like to spray, and the smell of the urine is very strong. And that is pretty much why these guys are not in the house right now. There is a way to train them. If you get them fixed, you can get a kitty litter box for them and train them to go into the kitty litter box. And every time they try to spray, put them in a kitty litter box so that, well, you're just kind of like training them like any other pet. See his little area right here? That's all urine from him spraying. And male rabbits will, that are not fixed, will spray to mark their territory, especially if there's a female next to them. Or it also says that if they like you, that's just something that they do, and you have to try to train them to not do that. Rabbit manure has 4 times the nutrients that cow manure or horse manure has. Plus, you don't have to wait for rabbit manure to compost or break down, because it is considered a cold manure, and that means that you can put straight pellets, straight rabbit manure on your garden and on your plants, everything, and it won't burn them. It's called a cold manure because it's not hot like a chicken manure or cow manure or horse manure. You have to wait for that stuff at least a year or so for it to break down. And with rabbit manure, you don't have to wait at all. Now, that brings me to my next conclusion. My garden did not do well. We didn't get a very big yield. And I was racking my brain trying to figure out what I did differently and why the year before it did, so well, and then last year it just didn't do well at all. So last year, and I even did a video on this, which is so crazy, I've used my rabbit's manure on all my plants, and they did so good. And I'm not sure, I really don't know why I didn't even think about it when I'm guessing I was just too overwhelmed, and that's why it just didn't dawn on me, hey, maybe you should be using your rabbit manure if your plants are doing really bad, I'm definitely going to be getting another harvest, and this is all because I used rabbit poo on this one row right here. Now the other rows I did not use the rabbit fertilizer on, and that pepper harvest wasn't that good. So I'm thinking, yeah, it's the rabbit poo. Lesson learned, I will be using rabbit manure in the spring, and I have already started to put some of their manure on some of the beds because it's a great nitrogen fixer. It adds nitrogen to the soil, it adds phosphorus, it has so many minerals that is so good for your soil health. Rabbit manure is good for poor soil, to help build up your soil. It helps soil to retain the moisture. It adds minerals to poor soil. It also improves the life cycle of the microorganisms in the soil. Well, some people might ask, how do you store rabbit manure? If, all winter, what do you do with it? I put it in buckets. And that's it. You could also make a rabbit tea out of the manure in the spring and pour it on your plants like that instead of just using the pellets, which I have done that. And all you do is you just let it set for like a day somewhere, and then in the morning you just pour it on the plants just like you would just be watering your plants, and it works wonderful. So keeping rabbits are a lot cheaper than keeping chickens, for sure. We don't have to buy the food as much. We don't give them as much food. I give them like a cup of food a day, and they don't eat it all. It takes them at least 2 to 2.5 days to eat a cup of food, because I'm guessing because we supplement their feed with a lot of hay. That's it for today, guys. I thought that you guys would like to see how we get our bunnies ready for the winter and how we take care of them in the winter. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that everybody has a very blessed day. Bye.